The meeting starts on time. Everyone smiles, everyone nods. You notice it right away. No one wants to be the first to disagree. The manager pitches a plan that makes no sense, but the room stays silent. A few people shift in their chairs. One person forces a chuckle, another says, "Sounds good." You watch the room fold into itself. One by one, the doubts disappear. Not because they've been resolved, but because no one wants to be the odd one out. Someone finally asks, "Any concerns?" Dead air. Someone else jumps in. "Let's do it." The decision is locked. Not because it was right, not because it was smart, but because it was easier. Later, after it fails, no one remembers who agreed first. They only remember that everyone did. Now imagine this happening across a school board, a jury room, a newsroom, a military cabinet. Each person believing they're thinking clearly. Each one quietly assuming someone else has it figured out. No one wants to be the reason the group slows down. No one wants to be voted off the island. So we all row in the same direction. Even when it's straight into the rocks, you've probably seen it before, at work, in your family, online. The same rhythm, the same echo. And maybe you felt it too, that pull to stay quiet, to nod, to go along, to not make it weird. But what if that quiet is the real danger? What if the agreement isn't thinking, it's just fear synchronized? You don't need a dictator to silence people. You just need a room full of nice, scared minds. One fool can be dismissed. But when that fool finds a crowd, he becomes a leader. That's the shift we're looking at. Not how bad ideas start, but how they spread. How a single error, when echoed enough times, becomes truth. Not because it was tested, not because it held up to scrutiny, but because people got tired of pushing back. Groupthink doesn't feel like stupidity. It feels like agreement. It feels like momentum. It feels like safety. But underneath that comfort is something rotten. People stop thinking for themselves. Not because they're weak, but because they're human. The moment your brain senses that speaking up could cost you status, connection, or safety, it adapts. You smile, you nod, you make peace with what doesn't make sense. It's not that people stop noticing the problems, they just stop talking about them. And here's the catch. The more we conform, the more we reward conformity. The louder the agreement, the harder it is to dissent. Eventually, disagreement doesn't just feel inconvenient, it feels like betrayal. This isn't just about politics or business or the media. It's about families, schools, friend groups, even small teams. Wherever people gather, the need to belong will always fight the need to be right. So the real question isn't, why do people follow the crowd? That's too simple. The question is, why do smart people in smart groups make dumb decisions together? And why, even when the signs are clear, does no one say a word? That's the trap. Not ignorance, but shared silence. Groupthink isn't just people agreeing. It's when people suppress their own doubts to maintain harmony. Coined by Irving Janis, it describes the mental process where the desire for unity overrides logic, risk assessment, and critical thought. You end up with a group that feels smart but acts blind. Conformity is the pressure, spoken or unspoken, to match what others are doing, saying, or thinking. It isn't always forced. Most of the time, we conform without realizing it. We adjust our opinions to fit the tone of the room. Not because we're weak, but because we've learned that standing out often comes at a cost. Emotional sync is what happens when people start mirroring each other's moods, beliefs, or reactions. It creates a sense of unity, but it replaces independent thought with group rhythm. Instead of checking the facts, people check each other's faces. The louder the feeling, the less room for analysis. This piece isn't about every group decision. It's about the ones where doubt gets buried, truth gets softened, and silence becomes loyalty. Not all agreement is groupthink, but when fear replaces thought, that's the line. The term groupthink came out of failure. Not theory, not speculation, failure. In 1961, the CIA launched the Bay of Pigs invasion. It was a disaster. A small, poorly supported force tried to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba. It failed in under 3 days. No real backup, no clear plan, no exit strategy. But what shocked psychologists wasn't the failure. It was how many smart people approved it. Ivy League minds, military leaders, elected officials. Most of them had private doubts, most stayed quiet. That's what caught Irving Janis' attention. A Yale psychologist, Janis studied the decision-making process behind the Bay of Pigs and other major U.S. policy failures. He noticed a pattern: pressure to agree, suppression of dissent, illusion of invulnerability, rationalizing warnings away. Janis named it groupthink, a mindset where people inside a group trade critical thinking for social unity. It wasn't about dumb people making dumb choices. It was about smart people avoiding conflict. He went on to study other cases: the escalation of the Vietnam War, the failure to prevent Pearl Harbor, the Challenger explosion. Each involved teams that ignored warnings, overestimated themselves, and punished disagreement. Not out of malice, but fear of rocking the boat, of being shut out, of seeming disloyal. Groupthink wasn't new, but Janis gave it a name, a shape, a pattern. He showed how groups that value harmony too much start to rot from the inside. The theory spread quickly. Business schools taught it. Leadership seminars warned against it. But awareness didn't stop it. Because groupthink doesn't come from ignorance, it comes from pressure, and pressure never really goes away. People want to feel safe. That's the root. Safety doesn't always mean physical survival. Sometimes it just means not being embarrassed, not being left out, not being the one who ruins the vibe. The brain treats social rejection like physical pain. That's not a metaphor, it's how we're wired. The same regions that light up when we touch something hot also fire when we're excluded from a group. That's why silence feels smart when everyone else is nodding. That's why speaking up feels dangerous, even when you're right. We want connection. We want approval. We want to belong. These are survival traits. In the wild, isolation could kill you. In society, it just wears you down slowly, so we adjust. We read the room, we shrink a little. Sometimes we do it to keep the peace. Other times we do it to avoid conflict. But the deeper reason is fear. Fear of standing out, of losing status, of being seen as difficult. When we conform, we get rewarded. Fewer arguments, more smiles, a sense of unity. But the cost is real. We trade insight for comfort. When enough people do this at once, the group feels stronger, but it's not. It's more fragile. Because now, no one's watching for danger. Everyone's watching each other. Groupthink feeds on this need to be accepted. And when that need is strong enough, truth becomes a luxury. People don't want to be right. They want to be safe. The brain likes patterns. It builds shortcuts to save energy. That's helpful when spotting danger, but risky when dealing with ideas. When you're in a group, your brain watches faces more than facts. It starts syncing with tone, body language, and emotional cues. You laugh when others laugh. You tense up when others frown. This is called emotional contagion, and it happens fast. The problem? Emotion outruns logic. When people around you act sure, your brain takes it as a signal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they know something I don't. Even if you spotted the flaw, you start second-guessing. Then comes pluralistic ignorance. A bias where everyone privately disagrees but thinks they're the only one. So no one speaks. And the silence becomes its own kind of proof. Add in confirmation bias, our habit of favoring things that support our beliefs, and now you have a closed loop. People look for agreement, ignore warning signs, and feel more certain the more others agree. The group doesn't just miss the problem. It feels even more confident in the wrong direction. Emotion makes this worse. Anger, excitement, fear, these tighten the loop. They push urgency and shut down nuance. The stronger the emotion, the smaller the space for thought. By the time someone notices something's off, they've already bonded with the group. Their doubts now feel like betrayal, not insight. We like to think we make choices based on facts, but in a group, we often make choices based on belonging. And the brain will protect that feeling, even if it costs us clarity. It starts early. In school, the quiet kid who raises hard questions gets labeled difficult. The one who challenges the teacher risks detention, not praise. We're taught that fitting in matters more than standing out. Even when we say we value critical thinking, we reward obedience more. By the time we hit adulthood, the message is clear. Keep your head down, read the room. Don't be the one who kills the mood. Workplaces do the same thing. They talk about collaboration, but often mean agreement. The boss floats a bad idea and the team nods along. Not because they believe it, but because pushing back might cost them a raise, a promotion, or their place on the team. Social media turns this up louder. Algorithms reward conformity. Say what your group wants to hear and you're boosted. Say something off script and you're punished. Not with debate, but with silence, mockery, or exile. Cultural norms matter too. In some circles, disagreement is treated as disrespect. In others, even asking a question can be seen as an attack. Families have this dynamic. Religious groups, political parties, unions, friend groups. Everyone says they want honesty until honesty makes things uncomfortable. So people adapt. They censor themselves, not because they're dishonest, but because the cost of truth feels higher than the cost of silence. That's how groupthink stays alive. Not because people believe the lie, but because they're afraid to challenge it out loud. And the more a culture fears discomfort, the easier it is for bad ideas to look normal. We say we want truth, but we punish the people who tell it. We train kids to think for themselves, then grade them for agreeing with the textbook. We tell employees to speak up, then sideline them when they do. We post quotes about bravery, but follow the crowd anyway. There's a quiet contradiction built into groupthink. The more a group values unity, the more it pushes out the very minds that could help it grow. The smartest person in the room is often the one who sees the flaw. But if they speak up and no one listens, what happens next? They get quiet, they give up, or they leave. Meanwhile, those who nod along stay. They rise. Not for being right, but for being easy. That's the trap. The more a group silences doubt, the more it builds a false sense of strength. It looks united, but it's hollow. It feels solid, but it can't take a hit. And here's the twist. Most people in a groupthink environment aren't trying to manipulate. They're trying to survive. They don't think, let's crush dissent. They think, let's not make this harder. So the damage doesn't come from villains, it comes from good people who stay quiet just a little too long. And the longer the silence lasts, the harder it is to break, till someone finally asks the question no one wants to hear. And by then, it's already too late. You see it everywhere now. In boardrooms that approve flawed products to keep shareholders happy. In classrooms where students repeat what earns praise, not what shows thought. In political parties that echo talking points, even when the facts no longer line up. The risks aren't abstract, they're measurable. Bad decisions waste money. Misjudgments hurt lives. Silence breeds deeper failures. During the COVID-19 pandemic, some governments ignored early warnings. Not because no one knew, but because the first voices were dismissed. Too alarmist, too political. Tech companies release features that damage mental health, then act surprised by the fallout. Internally, employees spoke up. Externally, they stayed in line. In law enforcement, groupthink fuels a code of silence. Officers see something wrong but don't speak, because breaking ranks can mean losing trust, backup, or even safety. Even in friendships, people see red flags but say nothing, because calling it out would ruin the mood. And online, the fastest way to go viral is to repeat what your side already believes. Nuance is punished. Doubt is framed as betrayal. We like to think the truth always comes out. But in a culture shaped by groupthink, the truth isn't just hidden. It's unwelcome. When everyone agrees too fast, something is usually missing. Not always intelligence, often courage. You don't have to fix the group. You just have to stop betraying your own mind. Start by noticing the silence. When everyone agrees too quickly, pause. Ask yourself, is this true or just easy? Second, test your thoughts out loud. You don't need to argue, just ask questions. Has anyone thought about the downside? What would it take to prove this wrong? This isn't about being a rebel. It's about staying honest. Third, make space for others to speak freely. If you're leading a group, reward disagreement. Protect the outlier. When people feel safe to challenge, better ideas surface. If you're not in charge, find quiet ways to hold your ground. You don't have to convince the room. You just have to stop lying to yourself. Last, trust discomfort. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't push it down. Sit with it. That tension is your signal. You don't need to be loud. Just be clear. And when everyone else nods, be the one who blinks. Go back to the meeting room, the one where everyone nodded, the one where the bad idea passed without a fight. Now ask yourself, did no one see the problem? Or did no one want to say it first? This is how it happens. Not with shouting, not with force, but with stillness. With agreement that isn't real. One fool is just noise. But 1,000 fools synchronized, that becomes policy, culture, belief, and you don't need a mob. You just need enough people afraid to speak. So the next time you feel the urge to stay silent just to fit in, don't. Because silence isn't neutral. It's the signal that lets the lie spread.